All right, we're going to begin together with these words that are up there, the Shema, all together. Here we go. Shema Yisrael, Yehovah Eloheinu, Yehovah Echad. Hear, Israel, Yehovah our God, Yehovah is one. And we will love Yehovah our God with all our hearts, all our beings, and all our resources. Amen. In Hebrew, it's Amen. Amen. Okay, we'll learn a little Hebrew tonight, but not that much. Okay, because I know sometimes I bowl you over, and I look at the look in your eyes, and you look like deer in the headlights. Okay, and Wednesday night, when we have Torah class, and here we are learning Hebrew. We're learning very slowly. And I love looking out at people's eyes when you are learning a new language like Hebrew or whatever, and they're just like, I don't know anything. But you know what? Hebrew is not that bad a language. It's easy. It really is relatively easy to learn. One of the reasons is all of the letters look like none of the letters that you know. So you don't get them mixed up with anything else. Okay? And the other thing about that language is there's a very limited number of words. You know, unlike English and other languages where there's 100 or more thousand words, I believe now, because we're getting new words every year. Words like woke. Just new words everywhere. It's like every day there's another word and there's another. No, now this is the way we're supposed to look at life. Oh, really? So I don't know if it's that I'm getting older or that I'm getting wiser, but I'm not going there, down that road. Okay, anyway, here we go. We're going to look tonight. We're in Matthew. We're back in Matthew, and we'll just jump right in there. Matthew 20, verse 17. As Yeshua was going up to Jerusalem, you know, the Hebrew pronunciation is Yerushalayim. Okay, as he took the 12 Talmudim, or disciples, aside by themselves and said to them as they went on their way, and we'll get to the words in a minute, okay? But I want to look at something here. Yeshua is now on his, if you will, final journey into Jerusalem, where he will gather together with others and celebrate the last Passover. Okay? And as you read these words, going up, you know, if you're not familiar with it, you would think that literally means he was going up, like it's upland or like it's north. There's a map right there if you want to look at it. And the truth is, when and where Yeshua is right now, he's in Jericho. Does anybody know the elevation of Jericho? 900 below zero. Okay, so he's going from 900 below zero up to about 2,500, where Jerusalem is on a hill. Okay, so as they're going up, and Matthew is writing about them going up to Jerusalem, they literally are, but that's not what that means. Okay, and here's the reason why. In the Bible and in other ancient Hebrew and Jewish writings, when anyone anywhere goes to Jerusalem, Zion, if you will, they are always going up. Even if you're way up north where Mount Hermon is, okay, which is way higher than Jerusalem. Okay? If you're going from there and you're going to Jerusalem, you're going up. Why? Because it's this idea. Back in Genesis, in the beginning, God, Elohim, created the heavens and the earth, right? And everybody knows and everybody's familiar with Genesis 1. But did you know that heavens is Shemayim, and the idea in the ancient mind is, I believe, the idea in your mind right now, if I were to ask, where is God? He's up there in the Shemayim, in the heavens. So in our minds, even though in reality, God is up, God is down, God is everywhere. But in the mind of those that were in the Bible and wrote the Bible, God is up, bad is down. Up is good, down is bad. Down to earth, whatever. Okay? So this language developed. We're going to go up to Zion, up to Jerusalem. It really is the one true allowable high place in the world. Okay? To go up to Jerusalem. How many of you have been there to Jerusalem? Oh, I'm jealous. Father, I forgive all these people for making me jealous for going there. We are going to go there. We're going to get there. I believe we're going to go there next year. Does anybody want to go? Yep. All right, let's get that back together again and do it. All right, here we go. So now he's on his way. They're going up to Jerusalem. He brings his own followers, his disciples aside, and then he says to them, we are now going up to Jerusalem. That's kind of redundant, but that's the way it reads. Okay, where the Son of Man will be handed over to the head Kohanim and Torah teachers. They will sentence him to death and turn him over to the Goyim. Who are the Goyim? The Gentiles, the Romans. And they will jeer at him, beat him, and execute him on a stake as a criminal. But on the third day, he will be raised. Now, as we have read Matthew, I don't know if you realize, we have read every word, every verse. We have gone verse by verse from the beginning, and we're not in a real hurry to get to the end. But as we have noticed, there are these moments where Yeshua speaks about him in the third person. And that's what he's doing here. The Son of Man will go up. Who is that? It's Yeshua, right? Okay? And it goes back, that language goes back into the Old Testament, in the Tanakh, into the book of Daniel, where Daniel has one of the most famous and well-known prophecies of the Messiah in all the Bible. Okay? Here's just a slice of those words in Daniel. He says, I kept watching the night visions when I saw coming with the clouds of heaven someone like a son of man. There's that phrase, son of man. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence. To him was given rulership, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, and languages would serve him. His rulership is an eternal rulership. Say that with me. Eternal rulership. Say it again. Eternal rulership. That will not pass away. And his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So with all of that in Daniel, and all of that floating around in the minds of everybody who's waiting on and expecting Messiah, Yeshua says the Son of Man will be handed over. Now, this is, in Matthew, the third time that Yeshua has let them know that he's going to go to Jerusalem and he's going to die. But now he adds a little bit. He adds that the whole event is going to be a collusion of the religious leaders and the Romans that will supposedly end with his execution on the stake or cross. But I believe this is the biggest but in the Bible is right here. But it's a very important word. Okay? So imagine you're these guys. You're hanging out with Jesus, hanging out with Yeshua. You are convinced now by Matthew 20, most of them are convinced he's the one. He's the Mashiach. He's the Messiah. And boy, we're gonna ride in and we're gonna beat the you-know-what out of the Romans. And we're gonna kick them out of Jerusalem and out of Israel. And now Yeshua again bringing them aside, saying, guys, we're at this moment. We're going up to Jerusalem. And I can imagine they're just like, yeah, we're going up to Jerusalem. And he goes, where I'm going to die. But on the third day, I will be raised. Whew. Okay, once again, it goes over their head, even though those words, on the third day. Do you have any idea how important those words are in the Bible and how often those words are in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament? It's like one of those dots that we're meant to connect that make us go, wow, that's amazing, okay? Now, in Hebrew, here's your lesson, Hebrew lesson. Just read the letters on the left, okay? They read from left to right, and there they are, so you can say them out loud. It's Layom HaShilishi. That's a neat word. Yeah, that's what I meant. Left to right. Directions, up, down. We're going up to Jerusalem. We're going right and left. Okay? With me again. Here we go. Layom HaShilishi. Shilishi. I love that word. Okay? And that means on the third day. And you may not be aware of this, but when Moses was on the mountain, okay, on Mount Sinai, and he was getting ready to go down because they were going to get the 10 words. Yehovah was on the mountain, and the smoke was there, and the clouds were there, and the voices were there. Remember that in Wednesday Night Torah? We learned that the thunder on the mountain is literally the word voices. It's not the word thunder. Isn't that interesting? Okay? So all of this was going on the mountain, and then Yehovah says to Moses these words, and prepare for the third day, Layom HaShilishi. For on the third day, Adonai will come down on Mount Sinai before all the eyes of the people. And then if you look back and just do a little bit more digging, you find out things like this, that it was on the third day that the earth brought forth life, meaning biological life began on that day. If you read about Abraham And Abraham's going to offer up Isaac. Remember that? What you read in the scripture is, on the third day, Abraham looked up and saw where Isaac was going to be offered up. Okay? Later in Genesis, it was on the third day that Joseph released his brothers from prison in Egypt. Okay? And then, as we just read a minute ago, it was on the third day that Yehovah spoke the 10 words or commandments from the mountain. By the way, I just want to stop right there a minute and let everybody know, and we're going to be praying for these men who happen to be Art and Robert, who are getting ready to go to that mountain. And they're going to walk up that mountain, and it's going to be an amazing trip. They're going to Arabia, and they're going to be looking at right where this all happens. So bless you guys on your journey. And once again, Father, I forgive. Please forgive me for my jealousy and help them to have a great, great trip. So we're looking at this third day, and there's more. It was on the third day that the Israelites crossed the Jordan to go into the land, promised land. It was on the, and these words are there in the scripture, okay, on the third day that Hezekiah was healed of his disease that was going to kill him. It was on the third day that Jonah was out of the fish. Okay? It literally is the word vomit. Okay? When it vomited him up. And it was on the third day that Esther entered into the palace of the Persian king in order to stop the death threat against her people, the Jews, that you guys are all going to be celebrating next week on Friday night, Purim. Okay? And then there's this. This is in Hosea. These words are amazing. In Hosea writes, "Come, let us return to Adonai, for he has torn and he will heal us. He has struck and he will bind our wounds. After 2 days he will revive us. On the third day he will raise us up and we will live in his presence." Wow. Think about that. Those words written hundreds of years before Yeshua was on the earth. It's interesting that after 2 days, he will revive us, and on the third day, he will raise us up. There's a lot of meanings that you could draw out of that. One of the meanings that I draw out of that is on the second day, if you will, he is doing exactly what we're reading about right now. He's gathering his followers. He's bringing the good news to the lost sheep of Israel, right? Because that's why he was there. So he's bringing that news to the lost sheep of Israel. And what we need to realize is when, and we'll look at this more later when we get to the end of the Matthew, but when Yeshua was raised up from the dead, Paul writes that we were raised up with him. Okay? In other words, it's not only about Jesus being raised, it's about all of us being raised. The life of God, his Spirit, the very life of God that never ends, is in you if you are a follower of his. That life is in you. This is one of the reasons why when Lazarus, remember Lazarus? Okay, in John, you read about Lazarus in John, and Lazarus died, and Mary and Martha were, they were in grief. But that's what happens when anybody dies. That's just the way we are, human beings. We're built, and Yeshua went to be there. Only he went late. Remember, he looked at his disciples and they were like, we need to go help. And he was like, hold on, just wait. And then he went, and he was already dead. Lazarus was already dead. And Yeshua looked at Mary, who was, or was it Martha? He looked at one of the M womans. Yeah, one of the women whose name begins with Mem. And he said to them this, okay, I am the resurrection and the life. He who is believing, meaning who is trusting in me, will live even if he dies. And then he asks, do you believe this? Okay, now, I know everybody wants to know, well, what does that look like? I don't know. I haven't been there yet. Okay? I don't know. But I know that the Bible teaches all the way from Genesis all the way to Revelation that life doesn't end. Okay? So that's what's going on, and that's what Yeshua is letting them know. And the disciples already knew all of this on the third day. They knew those words. They studied Torah. They knew that. They knew about the words of Hosea. They knew about the Messiah being Son of Man. And we would look at this, I would look at this and go, well, why didn't they pick up on this? It seems like it just went right over their heads, or in one ear and out the other. Why? And the reason is because it didn't meet their expectations. I read an article. It's admittedly psychobabble. Okay, it's psychobabble, but it's a decent article. And in that article, I read this, that expectations affect how people think, feel, and behave. Expectations guide how people interpret information. Okay? You get that? So they have in their mind, we're going to go beat the Romans. We're going to set Yeshua up and as the new king. And that means that we're going to be reigning with him, right? And who knows who's going to be in what position. But that's what they're hearing. And Yeshua's like, guys, I'm going to go up to Jerusalem and I'm going to die. And they're going to put me to death. And the disciples didn't hear it. Listen, if you already have your mind made up about everything, you're not going to hear anything except what you already know. And I have other news. You might not like this news. This is a rabbi trail, okay? That sometimes you need to give up what your expectations are, or you're going to end up bitter. Okay? Like I have this expectation that everybody is going to be like I want them to be. Which means that everybody's going to be better than they are now. Right? And you know how often that happens? Never. Okay? And I imagine people think the same way about me. Okay? So some of those we need to let go. Just let them go. Okay? But for these guys and for us, be aware. How many of you have read something in the Bible that you already knew or you already read, and then you read it again and you were like, whoa, okay? Or maybe you believed a certain way and then it got moved around and then you believed a certain other way. Okay? I mean, that has happened to a lot of us, right? So with that in mind, let's look at what these guys were expecting, because it's going to squeeze and ooze right out of them, okay? Because what happens next is then we read, Zabdi or Zebedee, his sons, came to Yeshua with their mother. And she bowed down, begging a favor from him. He said to her, "What do you want?" She replied, "Promise that when you become king, these two sons of mine may sit one on your right and the other on your left." Now, if you guys have been reading and you guys have been with us in this, you know that twice already, now we're on number 3 again, this issue of who's going to be the greatest, who's going to be the boss over who, has been addressed already by Yeshua with the disciples. So it would be really easy to look at the disciples and go, you guys are like the Three Stooges or something. You're not getting this. But maybe we should look in the mirror. Because maybe we've been like that as well. You know what I mean? And what's amazing is that Zebedee's sons, James and John, come to Yeshua with their mother. I'm like, really? Okay, this is another sign that they're younger than you think they are. Okay, probably teenagers. But even then, with your mom? So they're bringing mom. By the way, Mark's version of this event doesn't even mention mom. Mom's not even mentioned in that. James and John are the one coming to Yeshua and asking about it. And here in Matthew, Yeshua doesn't respond to mom, but to the boys. Okay? And this is his answer. Yeshua answered, "You people don't know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup that I am about to drink?" And they said to him, "We can." And he said to them, "Yeah, you will drink my cup. But sit at my right hand and on my left is not mine to give. It is for those for whom my Father has prepared it." Okay? In other words, that is none of your business. Okay? However, these words by them, "we can," do not mean, yes, we're ready to die. That is not what they mean. What they mean is, hey, we're going up. We're going to have Passover. There's going to be all this wine. You're going to be lifting up your cup. What a great moment for inaugurating the new king. So yeah, Yeshua, we're with you. We're ready. We're ready to drink whatever cup you have. Little did they know that Yeshua was going to be the Lamb. Now, Yeshua also looks at them and says, "Yeah, you will drink my cup." And he does not mean the cup in the meal. Okay? He means that like Yeshua, they are going to experience pain and sorrow and persecution and even death, which is exactly what happened. John, by the way, this John is the one who is a writer of the Gospel of John. I know I didn't use the word "the," and the reason is there's obviously others that helped John, which you can read by reading it. Because at the end of it, he uses "we." Like there's a group of us getting this together. That's not important. But he wrote the Gospel of John, he wrote the letters, and he wrote Revelation. That guy was exiled, remember, to an island and if tradition is right, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, he was tortured. But he lived to be in his 90s. Okay? The other one, James, died because he was martyred, executed at around 44 AD, which is not many years after this happened. But then Yeshua addresses this idea of who is going to be boss and what's the hierarchy going to be like in the kingdom. And he lets them know that it isn't up to him, it's up to his Father. Do you realize how often in the Gospels Yeshua refers to his Father as being greater than him, above him? It's just very interesting, isn't it? Go think about that one for a while, all right? Being at the right and the left, you realize, means like your number one guy and your number two, okay? Right hand would be number one, left hand would be number two, and that's what they were asking. Okay, now, lest we think that the other guys are more humble than James and John, all right, this is what we read next. When the other 10 heard about this, they were outraged at the two brothers. Do you honestly think that their outrage was over? How could you guys argue about that after Yeshua already taught us? No. Their outrage was going to be, hey, what gives you guys the right to think that you're going to be on the right and the left hand? What about us? What about the rest of us? Okay? So why are they mad? Why are they angry? Because James and John got there first. Right? Okay, wait, guys, hold on. What are you doing? Just like at work, right? Okay, so now look what happens next. Yeshua called them, meaning, hey, y'all, get over here. He said, you know that among the Goyim, that's among the Gentiles, those who are supposed to rule them become tyrants, and their superiors become dictators. Among you, it must not be like that. On the contrary, whoever among you wants to be a leader must become your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. For here he goes again, Son of Man did not come to be served, but serve and give his life as a ransom for many. Now, this is a problem in Christianity. It's a big deal. In general, not everyone, but in a lot of denominations and even communities and churches, they adopt a model that is the model of the world. Almost like Yeshua didn't even read these words. And whoever the leader is going to be like, the big dog. I mean, when I was growing up, I guess I've always had these weird ideas in my mind, because I remember being very young and looking up at the platform where all of the ministers on Sunday morning, we would all parade in with our robes, choir robes, because I was in the choir sometimes. And the guys, they would all sit right there, pastor, assistant pastor. I remember assistant pastor was a little bit older than the head pastor, but assistant pastor, I remember often during the message, he was praying. Because they're all sitting up there, and the audience is all looking at them. And they're sitting down in these huge chairs that always looked to me just like thrones. And I was like, these guys are walking out like they're royalty, sitting down on these thrones. They were good guys. I don't mean to judge them. I just thought it was weird. I thought the furniture and all that was just odd. And the one guy would sit there and pray. You know what that means? It looks just like that, you know. And people would ask, what are you doing? Are you falling asleep during? He's like, I'm praying. Well, you should have gone down. Anyway, when I got to be the head dog, then I went to sit down on one of those, and you know what? My feet didn't touch the ground. I sat down on that thing. I looked like, anybody remember Edith Ann from Laugh-In? No, only the old people remember Edith Ann. But I just looked like one of those little dolls sitting on the chair, and I was like, and I remember when I looked at the janitor in the church, and I was like, get these out of here. He was like, what? We can't move those. Those are holy. I said, no, they're not. Get them out. Anyway, see how I get in trouble in my life? I said, get those out of there. And they had a pulpit. That's the name of the lectern. I swear, that thing went from me. It was wide like this, and it was about that high, which meant when I walked up to it, and they used to say, I'll get you a little bench, you know, and I was like, whatever. But I looked like the talking toupee. Sitting there, I must have, right? So I remember the day I was like, get that out of here. That was a battle, right? Getting that out of there. Yeah, but do you know who gave that to the congregation? Their names on it and the little plaque donated by such and such in like 38. And I said, I don't think they're around anymore. Can you reach them? If you can reach them, we'll leave it there. If you can't reach them, we're moving it. That has nothing to do with anything except these subtle ways that we elevate. And it's very easy for all of that to go to your head. It's very easy. It's normal. Okay? And that's what Yeshua is bringing out here. He's letting them know, guys, the way that power and authority and hierarchy, the way it works in the world is normal to everybody. But it's wrong. In my world, it doesn't work that way. That's why he uses the words, among you it must not be like that. Sometimes I look back at the founding of America, of our nation. And if you read any of the documents of the founders, you know, like the Federalist documents and things like that, if you read those, you're like, man, this looks like they want to set something up that's really complicated. Yes. That's exactly right. They wanted it to be complicated enough that no one would ever rise above others, and that this idea of rulers and tyrants and dictators would never happen. But the day we live in, I'm concerned about that. In the world that we live in. I know the rest of you are as well. I found this written by our friend Dennis Prager. Okay? Just a year ago, he wrote this: totalitarian regimes don't arise because extraterrestrials visit a country and place a totalitarian party or leader in charge. They come from within a society. The totalitarian impulse in the human being is apparently quite profound. The desire to control other human beings, which is the defining characteristic of leftism, is part of human nature, apparently. It is. And when people have this idea, and I hear it, you hear it a lot. Well, people are basically inherently good. I'm like, have you not met others? Do you not know you? Are you inherently good? But you know what else? You're not inherently evil either. You're inherently one or the other. Which one are you?
Which one you choose?
Say that louder. Which one are you?
Which one?
The one you choose. That's exactly right. And God will never remove that from you. You will always have that choice of, am I going to be righteous or am I not going to be righteous? Am I going to be good or am I going to be evil? And am I going to listen to God's voice or am I going to listen to the enemy's voice? How's it going to be? But what Yeshua knew in that day and is warning all of us is that among us we are not to live that way. I have a quote that's rather long by George Washington, and I'm not going to read it all tonight, but just the beginning of it, a just estimate of that love of power and proneness to abuse it. And then he goes on and tells about why they have arranged the U.S. government the way that they arranged it because of that very thing right there. Yeshua recognizes that this desire for power over others is not only present in the Goyim, the Gentiles, but in his very own disciples. It's right there. Okay? Is that desire in religion today? Yeah. Among you, it must not be like that. Now, what is unfortunate is that this evil, worldly model of power took hold very early in the congregations that were followers of Jesus. It did. Just a few years after his resurrection, Yeshua calls this evil way of ruling, this evil model, calls it out in the book of Revelation. And he literally says it's something he hates. Maybe you've read this in the book of Revelation. Okay? Likewise, you too have people who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Used to read that and go, gosh, I wouldn't want to be one of those. How do you get to be one of those? What does that mean? This is very interesting. The word Nicolaitan is a Greek word. It's not a Hebrew word. It's a Greek word. When you divide them up, okay, Nikolaiti, all right, what those words mean together is conquer people. Okay? In his book, The Chronological Gospels, Michael Rood mentions the Nicolaitans. And this is what he writes about them, and I think he's right. The systematic subjugation of the people under a hierarchical, authoritarian religious system. This leadership technique, which results in manipulation, intimidation, and control, which is witchcraft, is common among Gentile dictators and false religious systems which must keep their what? Sheeple from thinking for themselves. So how many of you in the room believe that you have the ability to think for yourself? Okay? How many of you have ever heard me telling you what to do? Except Jeremy. I tell Jeremy constantly, and he doesn't listen. No, okay? Not unless you ask. If some people come in, they're like, I need some advice. And then I'm usually like, really? Are you sure? Yeah, I need some advice. I don't know. I'm not very good at that. And then what happens is I give advice and then people don't listen. And then they crash and burn like, okay? It's all right. You're forgiven. And I'm not always right either. You should have more than one advisor or whatever. But here's what I'm getting at. This is what I have no words when people look at us and they have this line and this idea, and they go, "You're in a cult group." We're the opposite. You guys do what you want. Really. I'm not your boss. Okay? That doesn't mean that, if you are a rampant evil disobeyer of the Word of God, that there's not going to be some words that are going to happen and some inviting of, stepping up and not doing that anymore or whatever. All right? But this idea that you are controlled by those that are over you, don't you realize that many, many, many of those in traditional Christianity are controlled by their traditions? And they, tonight I'm wearing tzitzit. Do I wear them every night? No. Do I wear them every day? No. Why am I wearing them tonight? Because I want to. And I got this neat little holder for them, for the tzitzit. Okay, so I have a whole 4, but they're all on my left, which is nice because then they don't get in the way of my arm when I'm playing. But the point is that you are controlled by you. Okay? And in your love and devotion to Him, to the Father, you and I are learning to allow His voice to lead us, not control us. God, if I may be as prophetic as to speak His mind, God has no desire to control anyone. If He did, He would. And He doesn't. Okay? So, this is where these guys, the disciples, and us, all of us, once again, we get to move up a notch and grow up a little bit more. Now, this is what we need to realize. This evil spirit of power and control blinds people. It really does. It makes them blind. The disciples, there's no way that their minds were open to the reality that Yeshua was going to die. They couldn't grasp it. They were blinded by it. And I'm not suggesting that this is exactly what happened next, but this is the way Matthew arranged it. Can I say that? You guys all right with that? Matthew's not a biographer, writing down everything exactly chronologically as it happened. Matthew arranges his gospel. And look at what's next. As they were leaving Jericho, a large crowd followed Yeshua. 2 blind men sitting by the side of the road heard that he was passing by, shouted, "Son of David, have pity on us." The crowd scolded them, told them to be quiet, but they shouted all the louder, "Lord, Son of David, have pity on us." Yeshua stopped, called them, and said, "What do you want me to do for you?" And they said, "Lord, open our eyes." Filled with tenderness, Yeshua touched their eyes, and instantly they received their sight and followed Him. So, there's a lot going on there. That's a whole message, so we're not going to go there because it's getting late. But I don't think it's by accident that He's having this conversation with His disciples who are basically blind. And then they walk by 2 blind men and He gives them back their sight. The same thing needs to happen to the disciples. Right? Same thing needs to happen to us. Sometimes we need to get our eyes opened up. So how do you do that? Well, how did these guys do it? The guys that were healed, how were they healed? What happened? What did they do? They had faith. What else? They asked. They prayed. They asked. You know, around here we have this phrase, nothing happens until you pray. Okay, you can sit around, think about it, write about it, whatever, talk to others about it, but nothing's going to happen until you and I get it with Him and ask Him, heal our blindness, whatever it is. So, can we do that right now? Let's just do that right now. Can we? Father, I ask that you give us our sight that is from heaven and not from earth. I ask that you forgive us for any way and all of the ways that we have tried to rule over others. We give that up now. We repent of trying to rule others. And we ask that you help us learn how to be servants of you and of one another. Amen. Amen. So, we have about 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to add or subtract, we're good. Robert, is that your hand? Yep. Robert has a hand up. There you go. Thank you, Monica.
About this third day, what's the first day? Was that a moon? Or what kind of event was uniform to the first day about after which the third day occurred?
You mean in the beginning?
Yeah, all the
Genesis?
list of third days.
Sure. Yeah.
Third day from what?
Day 1 from the Word. In the beginning, Yehovah, Elohim, created the heavens and the earth. And the Spirit is on the water, hovering, waiting to give birth, basically. And Yehovah speaks a word, and what is it? Let there be light.
Jonah?
Right? Huh?
Jonah?
Jonah.
Jonah?
Jonah.
Third day out of the whale?
Third day out of the whale.
From what?
Yep.
From the day he was swallowed?
Yes, that's right. Yes. From the day he was swallowed. That's the idea.
So I'm curious about third day from what?
It's pretty neat, isn't it? And there's a lot of them in there. I gave you a very small number of those examples out of the Bible. So, Esther. Welcome back, you guys.
So in Hosea it said on the second day he revives us.
Yes.
And on the third day he raises us up.
Raise us up.
So what does that mean?
What does revive mean, she's asking?
What does revive mean? Revive means you're dead. Now you're not. Now get up.
So the first day you wake up, or the second day you wake up.
Sure. But you got to remember, the prophets are, what's the word? They're poetic and they're symbolic. Okay? So you got to ask, what did they mean? What is he writing about? Is he writing about what happened with Yeshua? And I believe he is, because I believe that all of them are about Yeshua ultimately. But they're about us as well. So, and they're about Israel. Okay, because Hosea's message is to Israel, and Israel had wandered away, and basically not trying to be crude in language, but they were whoring after other gods, and Hosea presents a view of the father that his heart was broken. And because his heart was broken, he was going to look at Israel and say, you know what, you're not my people anymore. But then come back around, and the heart of Yehovah is like, I can't give you up. I can't give you up. On the second day, I'm going to revive you. On the third day, I will raise you up. So, pretty neat. Okay. You're beyond you have 1 minute, Dana. No. Ready? Go!
So, is a day 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is a day?
No.
It's not.
No.
Okay.
A day is as
as 1,000 years.
It could be 10,000 years. The point is, a day is longer in God's mind than it is in yours.
Aha. So I'm just looking at the as part.
Yes.
And I wanted to know, so it's 2,000 years now since Jesus died on the cross and rose again.
Yes.
And we're looking at first day something happens, second day you get revived, and the third day you do something. What was the third day?
You don't do anything, you are raised.
We are raised. So I'm thinking along the 1,000 years deal, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. I'm just thinking, okay.
And you know what? It might be. I was a little blunt, which is not always bad. But let me put it this way: it may literally mean one day equals 1,000 years. Okay, but it may also mean, in your days, God's days are like infinity compared to yours. You say, well, why didn't God use the word infinity? Because that word doesn't exist in Hebrew. 1,000 is a word in Hebrew that means forever. It's like way out there. He's going to love you into how many generations? 1,000 generations. That doesn't mean 1,001 he's not going to love. Right? Okay, let's stand together and be dismissed. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and everybody that added everything. The blessing over the bread and the wine was gorgeous. It was beautiful, and now I will do my best to give you Hebrew words that mean in English, Yehovah will bless you and keep you. Yehovah will make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. Yehovah will lift up his countenance, that means look at you in the eyes, and give you shalom. Yivarekecha Yehovah v'yishmereka Yair Yehovah panav elecha v'kuneka Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Amen. Shabbat shalom, and go home and read those Bibles.
You're just supposed to do something.